this on? Awesome. Hey guys, it's so great to be here. Sonia, thank you for the great intro. To be honest, that covered a lot of my talk, so we're going to make this real quick. Just kidding. But in all seriousness, I'm extremely humbled to be here today. As Sonia said, I am an Ottawa native. My co-founder and I started companies in Ottawa before moving out to San Francisco, and we've created countless jobs for Canadians in San Francisco and here in Ottawa. So if any of you are interested, check out our jobs page and let me know. But I know you're all here because you want to start your own companies or are in the process of starting companies. I've been through many trials and tribulations over the last 10 years starting startups, and so I want to share some of those experiences. So back in 2009 as a, oh, here we go. Yes, founder talk. So I had the incredible opportunity to be in the inaugural class of Singularity University, which is a graduate studies program focused on accelerating technology and applying that to humanity's greatest challenges. So this is where I got the opportunity to turn an oh shit idea into a fast-growing company with product market fit. And in my talk today, I'm going to teach you all 3 major lessons we learned and how you can do that yourself. Basically, one of the major takeaways I want you all to have is that if I can do it, you can do it, because I really believe that. It's going to just take a lot of hard work and nerves like steel. So just know what you're signing up for. So back to Singularity, really cool cutting edge program. My co-founder Sam and I got the chance to be in this inaugural class. 2,000 people from all over the world applied, and when we got our acceptance letters, we packed our bags up here in Ottawa and flew out to Silicon Valley. We knew that this was going to be a great opportunity and that big things lie ahead. And as soon as we arrived, essentially on day 1, Larry Page, one of the founders of Google, challenged us to come up with an idea that could positively impact 1 billion people in 10 years. We said, wow, well, this is a huge challenge, but when Larry Page tells you to go, you go hard. So the problem, we really brainstormed a lot of different categories of global challenges, and we decided to focus on global transportation industry. We saw things like connected cars and self-driving cars coming in the future, and we thought that there was a big opportunity to tackle cars and create a more efficient system than we have today. It's pretty incredible, but there's 1 billion cars on the planet that sit idle 22 hours a day, which means every single day there's 22 billion unutilized car hours. Yet this is the 2nd biggest household expense, and it turns out it's the biggest way that you can reduce your CO2 emissions and greenhouse gas. So basically, you could have less cars being produced, less congestion, and less cars resting away, sitting on the road. Oh shit, right? Wow, okay, so this is a pretty good idea. We should probably go after it. So the problem, like we just talked about, is what we decided to call car overpopulation. There's too many cars in the world. We all have to own them, essentially, because we need to get around. But at the same time, what if you could just share your car when you're not using it? So make a way for cars to pay for themselves and for other people to live car-free by using someone else's car when they need it. So that's really what we thought we could solve. And just pretty much that simply, Getaround was born. And so Getaround has become one of the thought leaders in the sharing economy. We've created the space together with companies like Uber and Airbnb. And it all came from this dream that we could, for the first time ever, make cars a moneymaker rather than just a depreciating asset. And it can be one of the biggest ways we could have a positive impact on the world. And like we said, impact 1 billion people. Of course, that's a very meaty challenge. We haven't yet hit that goal. We're about 7 years in now, and we're starting to get the rapid growth that we'll need to accomplish that goal. So with Getaround, essentially it's a marketplace for sharing cars. So you can share your car when you're not using it, and other people can rent it through an extremely simple interface, either on the web or on our mobile apps. It's basically within a couple taps you could have a car. So it's totally redefining the car rental experience. You don't have to go to a location, you don't have to fill out paperwork, stand in line. It's completely seamless. Of course, in order to do this, we had to develop custom insurance and hardware and a ton of other things I'm going to tell you about, but this is the introduction to Getaround. So where we are today with Getaround, just to give you a bit of a preview, is we've raised $85 million in venture capital. We have, with a round of $45 million that we announced a couple weeks ago, we partnered with some of the biggest names in the automotive business, including Toyota, Mercedes, and even Uber. And we've overcome a ton of hurdles to make our dream a reality, and we're still working really hard every day to basically expand to more markets. So Sonia told me to say this. People always ask if we're coming to Ottawa, and we are coming to Canada next year. So if everyone in this room were to sign up their car on Getaround, I think we could probably come. So that's what it's going to take. We need about 500 cars coming on board with us, and that's not that hard, so tell your friends. So let's get into it now. Like I said, I promised you 3 major lessons that are going to help you. We're also going to share these slides afterwards, so don't worry about taking too many notes. But when you're starting a new company, what you really need to do is to get to proof of concept quickly. So we really believed in this, and we were told by a lot of people that this is a totally crazy idea that'll never work. And obviously, we've proved a lot of people wrong now. We have 500,000 users, and we have thousands of cars shared on the platform. But in the early days, the questions we got over and over and over again were, what about insurance? And what? You want me to share my car with a stranger? Are you crazy? So, that's okay. Like, when people keep hitting on a few different points, what we believed is we just need good answers to these questions. And for us, even though we had a lot of naysayers, pretty much every person we talked to, we thought, okay, if we can create a pilot program, if we can create a very basic proof of concept, that'll give us kind of the fodder we need to double down ourselves, hopefully get a little bit of capital, but also, basically show that there is market interest in doing this. And so that's exactly what we did. We basically used Singularity University as a platform to get 10 car owners on board and 100 people to share cars. And it's nothing like the platform today. It was all manual, so people would meet up and exchange keys in person. We were able to get a very small commercial insurance policy in order to defray the risk of sharing the cars. And basically over a 2-month period, we saw people sharing cars, and that there was demand for access to vehicles, and that owners truly would share with strangers. So that basically gave us the confidence to move forward and tackle some of the major hurdles that we would have to overcome to get this business to market. So lesson number 1, and this is really important, so after I tell you about it, I want you to say it with me. So the lesson is start small, launch big. Start small, launch big. All right, got to keep you guys awake because I know it's the afternoon. So here's how it goes. You can get a proof of concept, and then once you know it's going to work, it's important that you basically build up to a big launch, since you basically only get to launch once, and it's your opportunity to get press, get customers, basically get your brand out there. And so that's exactly what we did. We were very fortunate that our first go-around actually worked out. We got a ton of press coverage. We became pretty much a tech darling after this. One thing I will say is that some other famous founders in the Valley like to say that if you're not noticed on your first launch, just launch again and again and again. So keep trying, which is kind of a theme of my presentation anyway. So overcoming huge hurdles. Any company you have is going to have hurdles. Getaround is one of a much more complicated business than most. But for us, we really had to believe in the concept a lot. We knew that this wasn't something you could just do as a side project and it was going to happen organically. So, we all know the stories of Google and Apple and famous tech companies that have started in garages. And even though we're in the automotive space, we knew that we would need a serious amount of capital as well as really smart people in order to make Getaround a reality. So basically, we took a serious commitment, and we also went all in on making this happen. So the main hurdles we had to overcome were basically insurance, legislation, and hardware. So we focused on these pretty much all in parallel. Hardware development especially took us 3 to 5 years to really get to the product that we needed and wanted to have in the cars in the fullness of time. And that's become a part of our secret sauce and one of our strategic strengths. Part of the reason so many people in the car industry have picked us as the leader and partnered with us. Early on, insurance was our #1 challenge. We knew we didn't want to launch without it, since sharing your car with a stranger, people wouldn't want to sign up for that unless they knew there was no additional risk. They don't want to lose their insurance coverage. They don't want to take on the risk of someone using their car, crashing it, and not being covered. So that was a decision we made. We thought, we were told, well, insurance is the kind of business, if you can pay, people will insure you. Well, as it turns out, after cold calling probably 200 insurance companies, talking to so many insurance executives, doing everything you could possibly imagine to get in the door and get in front of people, and so many no's you can't even imagine, enough to just send you, home crying. But we really believed in this, and we knew we needed insurance, so we just kept focused on getting that done. We got some good feedback where people would say, well, if you can come back with operating experience, we'd love to insure you. This sounds cool, this sounds like it's gonna work, but that's not really helpful, because if you can't get insurance, you can't get operating experience. And also, these companies basically gave us the feedback that, well, if we insure you, then the car is gonna have 2 insurance policies, and when there's an accident, who's actually going to be primary? Who's going to deal with that claim? And we said, well, that's what we're paying you for, so how about that? And they just couldn't get their arms around the change, since this was so innovative. Like, we're asking insurance companies to do something that has never been done before. Well, we didn't want to let that stop us. So one thing, and thanks to my background in politics, I decided to try to pass a law in order to clear up the gray area in the insurance coverage aspect. And after a while, we were actually able to get a law passed. So that's a kind of crazy thing to do, but Getaround's, one of these innovative businesses where you have to do, kind of difficult things to make it work. And so once we had the law, we actually were able to get our first insurance partner, Berkshire Hathaway, to give us a 3-month trial policy so that we could basically prove that, people are going to be safe drivers using these vehicles. So the lesson here is to focus and keep fighting. No matter how hard it is, if you focus and you are going to win no matter what, you're going to get it done. And so what that means is after, whether it be 100 or 200 no's around fundraising or insurance policy, if you know you can do it, you're going to get it done. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how I figured that out. But first, say it with me, lesson number 2, focus and keep fighting. All right, guys. Yeah, there we go. You are energizing me and vice versa. So the thing here, and it's kind of interesting because this is something we hear all the time, right, is think outside the box. So, that's so cliche, but it ended up helping us a lot in knowing how to get over this hurdle. So that's what I would recommend you guys think about if you feel like you're at a wall and can't get anything else done. There's another way to do it, and that might just be the way to get it done. So moving on to the rest of our story, this is actually the launch that I talked about. So we worked very hard to get a lot of the different pieces together, actually relatively quickly, but it seems like a long time ago now, back in 2011. So we had our insurance partner, we did a pilot, we had the initial concept branding for the company, we had our first mobile apps, which in these days is relatively new. And so we were ready to basically say, hey world, here we are, and come sign up for the platform. Remember, pretty much this whole team, this was our whole team at this time. When we launched, people thought we were a pretty big company. Most companies that win TechCrunch Disrupt, which is the premier tech conference at the time and still is one of the top, people tend to win when they're actually relatively later stage. We were super early stage. And one of the things we did, which made us really successful, is we focused intensely on the presentation. We prepped our presentation day and night. We had friends and family QAing us because the question and answer period with the judges was one of the most important pieces in order to get the judges on board to vote for you. And so the story here, I'm going to move on from this in a second. First, I just want to point out some fellow Canadians in this photo. So the gentleman on the left in black t-shirt is Sam, my co-founder. And then on the other side is Tarek, his brother, who you guys might know. They're both local Ottawa startup founders. You can't see him, but there's a guy behind me who's also Canadian. So most of our team, when we launched, was Canadian. We had 2 Americans on the team in the middle there. We call them our anchor babies. American joke, never mind. So fail fast and listen. That's what I want to tell you about. So we launched TechCrunch Disrupt. This went from a crazy idea where we couldn't find 10 people or even 100 people to sign up for the service. But we really believed in it, and we packaged it all up real nicely, and the judges really bought into it. They said, I think you guys are really onto something here. This is going to be really big. And we're like, really? Great. And so within an hour, we had thousands of people signing up to rent cars on Getaround, and over 5,000 people sign up their cars to share their cars. And we were just floored and so grateful. And we were at this point, we're kind of off to the races. I'm sure this will come up in Q&A, but a quick thing on fundraising. At this point, we had raised a couple million, but we had probably talked to 100 investors to get that. And it was still very hard to raise. Once we won TechCrunch, we actually were the first company and still the only company to get the Audience Choice Award and the Judges Grand Prize Award. And basically, we were able to raise our Series A after this. So once we raised that, then you get a lot of pressure to expand and grow. And we really felt that, that was what we had to do. We'd worked on this for a while, and we were scaling and growing to different companies. But what we quickly found was that, people loved the concept, and, our mission is to empower people to car share everywhere. And people were trying to share cars, but we had this feeling that we didn't quite have product market fit. And so that was one of the main challenges that we started to try to address. So once we announced our Series A back in 2012, we actually rolled out a new product opportunity that we call Getaway. So what Getaway did is it let people give us their cars, and we would manage their car and rent it out for them. So a lot of people who are traveling or living abroad were really excited about this idea. We actually had thousands of people contact us wanting us to share their cars through the platform. We took 50 cars. Again, this is another example of a proof of concept. We made these cars instantly available since the owners didn't ever need the car. And all of a sudden, we had, let's say, 1,000 cars in San Francisco, and 50 of them were instant. All the business went to these instant cars, because before people would request the car, wouldn't necessarily hear back from the owner, and basically couldn't get the car when they needed it. So the platform wasn't quite as seamless or reliable as it needed to be. So with Getaway, and I'm going kind of quickly through this, but we got this key lesson that we needed to simplify the product experience and actually switch to be completely instant, which basically was going to ask a leap of faith from our customers to trust us even more. Because before, we were letting owners pick and choose who they wanted to share with, and now and then we asked owners to instead let their car be shared with anyone on the platform who wants it. So that was kind of a very big ask, but it turns out people were willing to get on board with us. So the lesson here is to make bold choices. Say it with me now. Make bold choices. Thank you. So this was a big deal because we had an okay business, but we decided to totally switch it and ask people to believe us, trust us one more time. And it could have totally not worked, and some startups have gone under by doing this, but what it did was it actually enabled us to get the kind of growth that everyone talks and dreams about, and it's all because we finally got to real product market fit. It's hard to know when you get product market fit, and I'm not going to stand up here and tell you the lesson is go get product market fit, because I know you guys are hustling and I know you're doing that 24/7. But when you find it, you'll know, and that's what you need, because you're not going to scale to a big company. You're not going to get Series B and Series C funding without it. So, we are really fortunate that our customers believed in us and really believed in our mission, and so that's why we were able to do it. We would have basically gone out of business without making this decision. So I hope that's helpful. So Getaround today, these are some of our fun team members back in San Francisco. We are in 14 different cities across the US. We have 500,000 users, which I mentioned before, and we've raised $85 million in investment. We are growing very quickly. We're partnering with some of the biggest companies to really expand our footprint and to increase the exposure people can have to the brand. So for example, one of our new partnerships with Toyota is actually a technology integration where in the future, all Toyotas are gonna come out Getaround ready. So it'll just be like a button you press, probably digitally, not physically, that you could say, I want to opt in for Getaround. So that's the biggest car company in the world. You can imagine how they are going to just give so many people access to Getaround, which will let us go to expand internationally quicker and basically reduce our costs to scale, but also just make it a lot more seamless to get on board with Getaround. Because the way it works now is our hardware technology is installed in the car when people sign up. So we pick up the car, we brand it, we take professional photos, we inspect it. But with this sort of strategic partnership, which we've worked years to get, now it'll be so much easier for people to try it out. And that's really important. Our goal is to really be a global transportation company and brand that is totally transforming people's lives and making a positive impact in the world. So this is some of the team behind it. We're 150 people. We have 500,000 users in a lot of different cities, and we're excited to be coming to Canada next year. So that's really the story. You know, I'd love to continue the conversation. So hit me up on Twitter. I'm pretty active there, and I know that you know, the experience of a startup could be pretty intense and scary, but it's definitely been one of the most exhilarating and amazing things I've ever experienced. So I highly recommend it, and I'm happy to help however I can. So thank you. Oh yeah, come on. And we're actually ahead of time, so we have time for questions.
We have a couple minutes for questions.
Hi there. You mentioned that despite being very early stage and having some challenges like insurance and matching of the cars instantly, you immediately became a tech darling. Why do you think you became a tech darling despite those challenges? Did you have champions that were behind you, or like, why do you think that happened?
Yeah, great question. So we spent 2 years overcoming those hurdles before launching. And so when we launched, we were extremely buttoned up in that we said, we've solved this is the brand, this is the concept, this is the vision, and this is the future of transportation, and this is why we think we're gonna be leading it. So we were just fortunate where, you know, Marissa Meyer, Eric Schmidt, Chris Sacca, like all these big name judges, basically they were floored. Like they were excited about the concept, and they felt like our presentation quality showed what kind of company we're going to be. So it's really that we had solved a lot of those problems before launching, so they couldn't really poke any holes in the business, and we just outshone the competitors.
You mentioned that you have a small team in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. Are you investing more in Canada?
Yeah, so we have a team of about 20 here in Ottawa. They're from our customer happiness team, so mostly team leads and managers. We will like to have different roles in Canada in the future as well, but right now engineering and product development is focused in San Francisco. So one thing we do is we've hired lots of Canadians and set them up in San Francisco, so that's an opportunity there. And then as we open Canadian markets, we actually hire up a local team, so like a city manager, marketing manager, operations manager. So we'll have those sort of roles in a bunch of different cities next year.
Given I've been told that autonomous cars are maybe 10 years, 5 years down the road, how does that fit into your paradigm?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we looked at the future of automotive technology in coming up with the concept for Getaround. For us, we believe that when cars are self-driving, it'll be even easier to share them. So we already see people sharing Teslas on the platform, which are semi-autonomous, and people paying for Teslas themselves. So basically, we'll be the platform and the brand, or one of them, that people choose to share cars through. And we're already doing some product innovations that try to try to make it similar to self-driving cars so that when they're there, it has a consistent product experience. And basically, you could imagine when people have self-driving cars, they're going to be very expensive. So we really believe that we are paving the way for them to come around.
Just curious as to how you were able to convince Toyota to do that. Isn't that counterintuitive? I suppose this is a way for them to take share from somebody else. That's how he did it?
Well, so actually a lot of the OEMs, they're always thinking on 5 to 10 year and then longer cycles. And so we started talking to most of these companies when we started 8 years ago. We've started having serious conversations about 4 years ago. But mostly, a lot of car companies know that people's behavior around cars are changing. Less people are buying cars, and a lot of them are focused on becoming mobility partners. So we are able to convince them that we're a strategic differentiator as well as a good marketing channel. A lot of companies know that, have seen the data where if you use Getaround, you're more likely to buy a car of their brand in the future. We can provide them with an extended test drive experience where it's a better experience to test driving a car. So there's a lot of different reasons to it, but it's amazing to see these guys are changing relatively quickly for their business. I think one more.
Hi, Jessica. I was wondering, because your idea is so unique, how did you find your team? Was it by your values? Like, how did you share the same vision as them?
Yeah, so team is incredibly important. You're basically marrying these people. You're going to have to work together with them for a long time and really make sure you get along. So a couple things that I look for are really complementary skill set, as well as just like similar values like you were talking about. Our founding team works incredibly hard and just has different areas of expertise, so we're very complementary. I was lucky that one of my co-founders, we had met here in Ottawa through the Fresh Founders Startup Club, and we kind of worked together on some other ideas before starting Getaround. And then our second business partner, I came up with the idea to do recruiting at a hackathon event. So there was a hackathon with about 800 attendees. I went in, I put up posters, and I basically interviewed about 200 engineers for a team, selected 7. And out of that team, I chose 1 to come on board with the company. And we were fortunate that it was the timing during the Singularity University program. So we essentially adopted him and stuck him into the program. And so he was with us early on, and all of us have been together for almost 8 years now. All right. Thank you guys so much. It's really great to be here. Have a great day.